It's the red man. Take me back! Take me back, please! No! Let me upload. Fuck you, said he.
Hello, all you really useful engines. This is Edward Engine Entertainment speaking. Well, here it is, folks. My top 20 favorite episode list. I said this would be my next video in my intro video, so here it is. Before we start, I want to make a few things clear. 1. If the story is split up into 2 or 3 episodes, I am allowed to include them as one episode. 2. I am allowed to use any episode from the TV series. For every series is a different canon from the TV series, so stories that were not adapted into TV are not allowed on this list. 3rd, this is all just my opinion. If you disagree with the episodes on this list, that is totally fine. These are just my top 20 favorite episodes, not the top 20 best. So let's get started. These are my top 20 favorite Thomas the Tank Engine episodes. Number 20, Over the Hill, from Season 20. Yes, I have a CGI episode on this list. This episode is in fact not the only CGI episode. Deal with it, alright? Over the Hill is the finale episode for Season 20. And boy, it is a stellar episode. The story goes like this. Glenn, the coffee pot engine, is the newest engine working on the Earl's estate. Stephen, another engine working for the Earl, starts to become jealous. A rumor pops up that the Earl is planning on building a railway museum on his estate. Stephen, in his fight for Glenn, challenges him to the race. Whoever loses the race becomes an exhibit in the railway museum.
Right then, let's see if you can keep up with me. Ready? Steady?
There's nothing else I can say about this scene that everyone hasn't already said. It's just amazing. So when Stephen and Glenn arrive at Napper Station many hours later, they had forgotten that they were racing at all and have become good friends. They do not even know who won the race anyway. It's just so great. The animation was great too. The characters are just wonderful. Stephen and Glenn's relationship set this episode out apart. And this episode perfectly represents the entirety of Season 20. Number 19, Last Train for Christmas, from Season 18. Personally, this is my favorite Christmas episode of Thomas the Tank. A high-speed engine named Connor is delivering passengers home to Sodor in the mainland. After making several journeys back and forth, he decides to pick up some extra coaches so that he can get all the people home in time for Christmas. However, while on his way to the mainland for the final time, the snow starts to fall even more heavily. All the other engines gather together and clear the line for Connor. They all manage to do so just in time for him to arrive home for Christmas. While the story itself is pretty basic, the episode does an amazing job of showing the true spirit of Christmas. Hard work and sacrifice will ensure a Merry Christmas to all. Like with Over the Hill, this was the final episode of Season 18. And it was a truly great episode to send off a truly great season. Number 18, A Better View for Gordon, from Season 5. This episode does the best job of capturing Gordon's character, in my opinion. It shows everything that Gordon is about, from him bragging about him being the best, to showing his displeasure with the other engines, as well as dealing with work that he doesn't like. And in addition, it is extremely enjoyable to see him get his comeuppance twice, especially the second time with the station crash. That crash is based off of a real crash in Paris in 1895, and boy, that crash is wonderful. In addition, Alec Baldwin's Gordon voice is amazing. Gordon sounds so stupid in this episode. Well, not just in this episode, in all of Season 5. Like I said earlier, this is one of my favorite Gordon episodes. In fact, it's my favorite Gordon episode. Only you die-hard Thomas fans will understand that joke. Number 17, Cautious Connor, from Season 20. For obvious reasons, my favorite character from Thomas and Friends is Edward. But my favorite character as a kid was James. So having an episode where my two favorite characters, two polar opposites by the way, clash and meet up with each other is superb. After complaining about Edward being late, James starts to doubt who is useful. Thomas and Friends stand up for Edward. After two boys fiddle with Jason's control, James becomes a runaway and can't stop. It is Edward's job to run him down and try to stop him. This whole runaway scene was one of the most intense of the whole show. From Edward's slow and gradual catch-up to James to the inspector's perilous effort to noose James's buffer. And to top it all off, the ending scene where James realizes his mistake and apologizes to Edward is so satisfying. This episode was a childhood favorite of mine, and still is to this very day. Number 15, Toad Stands By, from Season 4. This episode is kind of a weird one. It very closely follows the events from Oliver Owns Up from Season 3, but it wasn't made until the very next season, 4 years later. Also, George Carlin's voice for Oliver in this episode is noticeably different than his voice for Oliver in Season 3. But aside from those issues, this episode is absolutely epic. Oliver goes from an arrogant pushover to an absolute thug. In response to the trucks annoying him with their song and pushing him into the turntable, Oliver rips their leader into pieces. True, Scruffy was all rotten and rusty, but the trucks didn't know that. They got Oliver's message: mess with me or be ripped apart. The music that plays as Oliver pulls Scruffy is amazing too. It really captures Oliver's character development. Number 14. James learns a lesson, foolish freight cars, and a proud day for James, from Season 1. This is the first 2/3 part story on this list. As I said earlier, James was my favorite character as a kid, so I always had a soft spot for James episodes. These 3 episodes were standouts to me because they were the first James episodes, and they perfectly summed up every aspect of James. He's extremely boastful, especially about his paint work. He is impatient when it comes to his work as well as attention, and he can get really angry and rude when he doesn't get what he wants. But at the same time, when he messes up, he knows it and is truly embarrassed and sorry for it. He is a hard worker and will push through a difficult job until it is done. And when a new job is open to him, he is always there, ready to volunteer. There are a bunch of little moments that make these episodes great too. The instances with the top head and the boot plays are really funny, especially with George Carlin's narration. James' roast on Gordon losing his way was also really hilarious. And the ending of Foolish Freight Cars is extremely satisfying. It's a top of the hat congratulating James on his hard work and letting him keep his red paint job. James was my childhood, and I still love him to this day. Number 13. Donald and Douglas and the Deputation, from Season 2. This two-parter is an epic story of two of the most beloved characters in the entirety of the Thomas franchise. The only DVD I had with Donald and Douglas on it was Thomas and His Friends Help Out, and I never saw the Deputation until much later on in life. With that aside, these 2 episodes show how determined Donald and Douglas are to show to Tom and Hat how useful both of them are. Tom and Hat had originally ordered just Donald, but Douglas stowed away with him in order to avoid being scrapped on the old railway. While in Sodor, they go through loads of trouble. Donald has an accident into a signal box, Douglas has to deal with a fight with Brakeman, and off-screen, they misplace Thomas's coach. On one hand, I would have liked to see this episode, but I do think that Brett Allcroft was right in that this episode would have been too confusing for kids. Hey, even I get confused while reading the Railway series story. After going through loads of trouble, all the other engines realize that the twins are useful and band together to persuade Tom and Hat to keep both of them. George Carlin did a phenomenal job with Donald and Douglas. I mean, imagine if Carlin did one of his comedy routines with that voice. It would be hilarious. The Brakeman's breakup is also really intense. On a side note, I am glad that they kept Donald and Douglas black in the show instead of repainting it blue like in the Railway series. It helps them give them their own identity. Number 12, Cranky Bugs, from Season 5. Cranky Bugs is a legendary episode. This was the first episode for many landmarks in the show. Cranky Bugs is the first episode of Season 5, which is my favorite season. It also introduced the non-Railway series character Cranky to the show, and he is still heavily used to this day. It was also the first episode narrated by Alec Baldwin. I think it would have been interesting to see how George Carlin would have done with season 5, but Baldwin's narration is perfect for this season. And Cranky Bugs is no exception to this. It was also the first episode where Sir Topham Hatt apologized for being too harsh. I love Sir Topham Hatt and he's a great controller, but sometimes he can be a bit too harsh when it comes to punishing you. In this episode, however, when Cranky tells him that it was him who was causing the trouble instead of Thomas in person, Sir Topham Hatt decides to apologize to them. In addition, this episode has a great contrast moment in it. The first time that Cranky falls over is really intense and worrying the storm atmosphere. The second time he falls is absolutely hilarious. After calling Thomas and Percy names again, Percy reverses in rage while still attached to Cranky. As a result, Cranky never made fun of Thomas and Percy again. All of these things make Cranky Bugs a landmark episode in Thomas and Friends. Number 11, Haunted Henry from Season 5. I will say this. Haunted Henry is the scariest episode of Thomas and Friends. The sets are the scariest in the show. The fog effects are the scariest in the show. Alec Baldwin's narration is some of the scariest in the show. Then again, a lot of Season 5 Alec Baldwin's narration was scary. The suspense is some of the greatest in the show. His music is the scariest to appear in the show. Even the craft she towards the end of the episode is one of the best of the show. Haunted Henry is a true scare fest of an episode. It truly captures the essence of Season 5. It showed just how dark and scary the show could get, and how far director David Fincher was willing to take it. The way that this episode is structured is really nice as well. When Henry travels through the forest for the first time, we have no idea what is happening. Then when Henry leaves and cuts to the next morning, the episode makes us feel so uneasy. We think we know what the problem is, but we don't know what the source of it is. When Henry returns to the forest the next night, the same things appear and happen again. This time, the troublesome trucks have a panic attack, run through the warnings, and end up falling down a ravine. Then, out of nowhere, George Carlin, Old Bailey, shows up, which explains everything that was going on. As a reward for warning Henry about the danger, Old Bailey is rewarded for being appointed station master of the old station. After everything we went through up to this point, this ending is incredibly satisfying. That's all I can really say about this episode. It is, in my opinion, the scariest episode of Thomas and Friends.